Hello, and welcome to edition 7 of your Balkanweek, your weekly comment on events in and around the region of Southeast Europe. This week, I would like to talk to you about an ongoing dispute in Belgrade. It's been reflected with similar events in some other places, and this is about a mural. In the last year, in the neighborhood of Vračar in Belgrade, somebody put up in the middle of the night a mural depicting the war criminal convicted of genocide, Ratko Mladic, who had been the chief commander of the army of Republika Srpska during the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina from 1991 to 1995. So it's a portrait of him looking tough, with the slogan "Thanks to your mother for bringing you into the world," and it was immediately an object of dispute. Let me show you some pictures here, if I can just find the share screen button. There we are. Okay, so here you can see this is shortly after it was put up. There's the mural, and somebody has put red paint on the hand. So the symbolism is obvious enough. This is meant to indicate that he has blood on his hands. This was removed when the mural was placed. The people who painted it put a layer of lacquer over it to make it easy to clean off any kinds of additions or comments that people might want to make to the mural. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was another visual intervention onto the mural, where two activists came, covered the mural with white paint, threw the white paint at them. They were quickly arrested and taken away from the scene. Within the next day, the white paint was cleaned off. The mural was destroyed. There were several instances then after this where people covered the mural with paint of various colors. The mural was restored the next day, and it's easy to imagine this going on for very many years. Okay, so what we're seeing there is a dispute about the mural, about the content of the mural and what it represents. I just want to make a couple of points here about this dispute, which you can imagine going on for a very long time because there is no decisive intervention. The first is, on the question of whether Ratko Mladic should be condemned or praised, there are no factual elements in dispute here. Ratko Mladic was convicted of genocide, of crimes against humanity, and of several war crimes. He is now in prison, and he is going to remain in prison until he dies. Anybody who wants to dispute the findings of the trial chamber and of the appeals chamber that confirmed the decision of the trial chamber can refer to the decisions that were made by those chambers. But nobody is doing that. What they are disputing is not the facts of the case, but the context and the meanings of the crimes that were committed, with the contention that there may be some surrounding political elements that reduce the degree to which it ought to be considered as a crime. A second point that I would like to make, because there are some people saying, well, to provoke and then to tolerate and fuel and continue a dispute about whether a war criminal ought to be represented in a prominent space and a wall in the capital city is a distraction. It's a distraction from the terrible economic and environmental situation of the country, from the mishandling that's been disastrous of the COVID pandemic and so on. I find it difficult to accept the argument that it is distraction because the issues that are involved in this dispute are issues that are central to identity and to the ways in which people perceive national and cultural identity as being related to violence. And they're also central to questions that are fundamental to human identity, like the question of whether we care or do not care about the lives and sufferings of other people around us. So I think this is not a distraction. It's an ongoing performance, multi-sided, in which disputes about the meaning of identity are being carried out. And what does this show? I think we can argue that there are a couple of things that this ongoing dispute shows. One of the things that it shows is that on all kinds of concrete issues, on all kinds of political issues that are material, there is often very little dispute and very little insistence. But the place where you will see people take a hard line and refuse to compromise is in disputes over symbols related to identity. And the reason that these are the most intractable disputes, and you can see this with different symbols and different contexts related to different national identities, is that disputes over the character of identity and specifically over the relation of identities to the legacy of violence in the wars of the 1990s and possibly some earlier wars remains unsettled. These are basic lines according to which contention divides up in the societies that we're talking about. I mean, I think then that if we want to talk about the intensity of these disputes, their continuous nature, the fact that groups in power seem to be acting to keep disputes alive rather than to resolve or settle them or make them an object of discussion, raises the question of who profits from this kind of division. And there the argument, the answer to the question is probably fairly simple. The people who profit from it are the people who, for the last 30 years, have been profiting from a continuous atmosphere of crisis, division, and contention in which they are able to gather up the spoils of ongoing dispute.